Okay, so give me a second over here.
I'll talk a little bit too about the stimulus that just passed yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. So just make sure, I think we are gonna be live. Okay, cool. We are live on the group. So thanks everybody for joining. I'm here with the one and only Louie Vazquez, our CPA, and we're gonna chat about, or Louie is gonna talk about Prop 19th that passed recently, and the, what it's all about, and then he's gonna share some more good stuff, because as we know, this year been definitely quite a ride, and there's a lot of things that we need to know and learn, advantages, disadvantages, what to prepare. And from my own experience, right, it's so important to work with the right people, especially today when it comes to how to file taxes and how to prepare with all the stimulus, etc. But mostly you have to make sure to work with professionals, especially if you are a business owner. So, and once again, hands off, Louie. You guys, you and your team have just been just blessing. So thanks for everything, and take it from here.
Okay, May, can you make me the host so I can share the screen? Okay, let me just pull it up and we'll get right into it. Seminars, real estate seminars, presentation burnouts, and Prop 19. It says screen sharing has failed to start. Please try again later. Let me try it one more time.
Sure. As I say, like this, like dot or whatever. I mean, do you want to try and send me whatever you want to share? Maybe I can do it on my end.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay.
Thank you. You will have to make me the host after you send this to me. Thanks everybody for your patience as well. Working to share the screen over here.
Okay, Manny, just sent it to you from Aaron's email.
Okay, if you can drop share and then make me the host, I will.
All right.
I will take possession over here in a second. You can start chatting about whatever. Maybe just
rocks. Yeah, so we're gonna get into Proposition 19, who it's impacting, how great of a proposition it has. There's really great features. There's a calculation that's going to be performed when you're dealing with a client that is going to sell their primary residence and then buy a house that's more expensive. I'll talk about how the whole property tax basis carryover is working. And I'll also talk about kind of the negative side of Proposition 19 and how it's going to really impact the commercial real estate market, but that's not necessarily everyone's concern here. It is going to impact people who are inheriting property that is going to be used as investment properties rather significantly. So, we'll get into it, and you'll learn something definitely today that will set you apart on a listing appointment or on a buyer appointment if you're representing the buyer that wants to execute this Prop 19. Did you get it, Manny?
Not yet. So until then, do you want to share some kind of just kind of news flash about the stimulus that's just passed?
This year. While you're getting that, so the stimulus just passed. I think Trump's supposed to sign off on it before Christmas. The Senate and the House have already approved it. So this next stimulus, there's a lot of changes. It's gonna do some things to PPP applications for those of you who've got PPP applications already. And it's also going to open up another round of PPP stimulus for those of you who are eligible for a second round. And the main eligibility criteria to get more forgivable PPP money, it's gonna revolve around quarter over quarter, 2019 versus 2020. Okay, the quarter 1 19 versus quarter 1 2020, quarter 2 19 versus quarter 2 2020, quarter 3 19 versus quarter 3 2020, and quarter 4 19 versus quarter 4 2020. They're going to look at quarter by quarter. If you have experienced a 25% decrease in gross income is top line income, total income before expenses. If you've experienced a decrease of 25% quarter over quarter, and again, you can evaluate any quarter throughout the year in relation to the prior year, then you'd be eligible for another PPP stimulus forgivable loan. And it's going to be pretty much the same amount that you received last year. How they're going to calculate the eligibility. So that's the criteria to be eligible for it. How they're going to calculate your your PPP forgiveness loan that's going to be deposited into your bank account. That remains to be unseen. So, but it's supposed to be similar to the original loan that you received, if you received it. And then for those of you who have not gone into the PPP because you just didn't hear about it or you missed the deadline, you're going to be allowed to apply for it. So people who have not applied first time around, there's going to be more money accessible to you to go out and get. If you have already received a PPP loan, you're going to be able to get a second round. So that's really exciting. It remains to be unseen exactly the calculation that needs to be performed on the application to see how much you qualify for. So that's the update there. That's the flyer. Okay, so that's the flyer. That's not the.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, I understand.
Well, at least we can go over the topics until you're going to find it. So, well, Louis is going to go over the Prop 19, how it will impact California seniors, how Prop 19 will impact inherited investment properties. That's a big one. And how to calculate your new property tax assessment basis in value, which is definitely a topic for conversation and just makes you, for yourself, more knowledgeable and more, different topics as well. Okay,
okay, let's see if you get this one coming to you. Okay, just got sent to you.
Sure.
Apologize for that.
All good. We're gonna make it work.
Yeah, we'll make it work. All right, man. It came from me, so you should get it any minute. Well, I can kind of get into it before we get the slide coming. So basically, there's 3 people that are being impacted by this Proposition 19. And understand, Proposition 19 is superseding. It is superseding Proposition 60. Proposition 60 is currently impacts, I think it's 11 counties in the state of California. A good majority of Southern California counties already participate in it. Okay, yeah, perfect. That's it, man. So let's just scroll down to the first page and just kind of zoom in if you can. These are the people who are mainly impacted. Seniors 55 and above, okay, they're going to be able to utilize Proposition 19 up to 3 times anywhere in the state. And 55 and above, that's the California's definition of seniors. I feel like 55 is very young still. So don't take offense, but I'm using the word seniors. I'm strictly using the language that the state is defining a senior as, okay? It's also going to impact disaster survivors or disabled persons. So if someone experienced a disaster from a fire, they're going to be able to utilize Proposition 19 and they're going to be able to carry forward their tax basis. Or if someone gets disabled and they need to relocate, I hurt my back. I'm a construction worker. I hurt my back. I need to take, I have leave for the next 2 years as I'm recovering from my back injury. And I decide to move closer to family just so that they can help me out. Okay, you would be able to qualify for Prop 19. And they're in disabled persons or disaster survivors. They're going to be able to utilize Proposition 19 one time. And then who's impacted negatively are the inherited investment properties. Okay, if you inherit a property, and I'll get into that in the slide. So, man, let's go to the next slide. And we're going to get into a real world example. Just want to scroll that out a little bit. Okay, so we have basically a real world example here. I'm all about examples. I feel like that's the best way to explain. The three things to take from this, if you're gonna be working with a client that potentially is eligible for Proposition 19, again, seniors 55 and above, they're able to use it 3 times. Now with Proposition 60, which this is now superseding, you were only able to use that 1 time. Okay, so this is allowing them up to 3 times to utilize this proposition during their lifetime from 55 through their date of death. This goes into effect after April 21st. So April 22nd is the first day that this can be utilized, okay? And then when the original property sells, they'll have 2 years to then purchase the new property. So let's take a quick example for someone that's going to sell their property and then buy a replacement property that costs less than. And just to cut to the chase, they're going to be able to carry forward their basis no problem. So let's say I have someone that purchased a property in 1975 for $125,000. That was their original purchase price. They decide to sell on April 22nd, the day that they're eligible to start utilizing this, and their fair market value sales price is $950,000. Okay, so this property has appreciated about $825,000 during their lifetime. And then based on their annual property tax assessment increase, their current property tax basis value, their assessment basis value is $245,000. Okay, so assume a 1% property tax rate. This situation, this homeowner is only paying $2,450 per year in property taxes. Okay, and this property tax assessment basis value, it increases year over year, but no more than 2%. All right, so let's say that they want to sell this property that's worth $950,000, and within 2 years, they plan on purchasing a replacement property that costs $875,000. So the property that they're selling costs $950,000, and the property that they're purchasing costs $875,000. So the replacement property costs less than their original home. Okay, so because the new home costs $875,000 and the fair market value sales price of the old home was $950,000, this property costs less than. That's what we need to take from this whole scenario, okay? Now, with Prop 19, this homeowner would not have their property tax reassessed. Without Prop 19, they would be reassessed at the $875,000 purchase price, okay? And again, assuming a 1% property tax rate, they would pay $8,750. And that's a big objection for a lot of people who have had a home for a long time, and it's appreciated, and the real estate market in Southern California is a lot more expensive than it was, 20, 30, even 10 years ago. So a lot of times they don't want to sell their home, and they don't want to sell their home because they don't want to have their property tax basis reassessed. Okay, so without Prop 19, it would be reassessed at the $875,000. So they would go from $2,450 all the way up to $8,750, which is a $6,300 increase, significant increase. And that's enough for someone that on a fixed income to say, yeah, I don't want to sell my house. Okay, I'm sure people in this room have ran into that objection. And that's a tough objection to overcome. Proposition 19 is essentially eliminating that objection, okay? They're going to be able to carry over their property tax basis. There would be no reassessment. They would still pay the $2,450 per year. And that's going to that's very likely going to be a very motivated buyer, just because all they have to do is purchase. I mean, in this situation, they're going to sell their house for $950,000, and then they're going to purchase a house less than the $950,000. So, all they need to do is just buy it. There's no property tax reassessment that they have to worry about. Okay, so the big thing also to take away from Proposition 19, it's not limited to counties, which it's superseding Proposition 60, which is only limited to about 11 counties. So this is statewide now. Okay, so if someone wants to sell their house in the Bay Area and then move down to Southern California, they can do that without having to worry about any type of property tax reassessment. And again, they can do this up to 3 times, okay? And they're giving you plenty of time to work with your client to find that replacement property. You have 2 years. That's a ton of time. They're taking time out of the equation, in relation to a Section 1031 exchange where time is of the essence, okay? So this is very straightforward for a property that costs less than. I'm going to get into the next slide on what happens when a property is going to cost, the replacement property costs more than. And this is the steak and potatoes. Less than was the cocktail and the appetizers. Okay, so here's the steak and potatoes, and there's a calculation here in the middle that we'll go over, and I've made it as simple as can be. I think that you can literally walk into a listing or a buyer's appointment with this calculation in hand, and you would literally be able to tell them what their property tax reassessment would be if they're looking to sell a property and then purchase a property that costs more than what their original home sells for. So I'm taking the same facts from the first page that we just visited, okay? They bought it in 1975 for $125,000. They're going to sell their property for $950,000. That's the fair market value sales price. And their current property tax assessment is $245,000. So right now, they're paying $2,450 per year in property taxes. So let's say this client that you're working with, they want to purchase a new home within the 2-year time limit that they have. And the new home that they're looking at is $1.5 million. So, maybe they live in Riverside County, but, the grandkids and everyone's in Ventura County or Calabasas. Let's just use Calabasas as an example. And it's $1.5 million. Well, Prop 19 still comes into effect. It's just a calculation. And watch how this calculation works, okay? So because this new home that costs $1.5 million that they want to buy, that they're going to buy, and the fair market value sales price of the old home was $950,000, this situation, their new home, the replacement home, is going to cost $550,000 more than the old property. And here's the calculation that needs to be performed. You take the new property's purchase price, you take that $1.5 million of what that property is going to, the replacement property is going to cost, okay? Then you get to subtract the old property's sales price, okay? So you subtract that sales price of $950,000. Then you have to add back their old property tax assessment basis value, the $245,000. And that equals the new property tax assessment basis value, okay? So this $795,000, that's what they're going to be reassessed at, okay? They're not going to be reassessed at the 1.5. They're going to be reassessed based off this calculation of $795,000. So again, assume a 1% property tax rate and their property tax basis value of $795,000, their annual property tax is now $7,950. Without Proposition 19, okay, and Proposition 60, which Proposition 19 supersedes, Proposition 19 supersedes Proposition 60. Proposition 60 did not allow any type of leverage or eligibility if a property costs more. The property had to cost equal to or less than. That's what Proposition 19 is changing. It's allowing a calculation to be performed if the replacement property costs more than. So without Prop 19, they would have been reassessed on the $1.5 million. So 1% of $1.5 million, that's a big jump to $15,000 a year. Okay, they're going to go from a $2,450 property tax payment to a $15,000 a year property tax payment. Okay, but with Prop 19, they're reassessed at the $795,000 based on this calculation. So instead of paying $15,000, they're only going to pay $7,950. So essentially, that's saving them $7,050 per year. So this is the real cool part, I feel, of Proposition 19, when there's a calculation that's able to be performed when that replacement property costs more than. So you just think, let's say you're dealing with a client that their fair market value of the home right now is, let's say, $1 million, and they want to upgrade. They want extra bedrooms for their grandkids, and they're looking at a $2 million home. Okay, well, they're not going to get reassessed on that $2 million. That's a big jump, going from a property tax assessment of, whatever it is, to then get reassessed at $2 million. No, they're not going to get reassessed on that $2 million. This calculation needs to be performed, and it's a much more generous number that they're going to be reassessed on. So I think that's going to add a lot of leverage in the negotiations. I think I can already hear the agent negotiations. I have a Prop 19 buyer. I have a Prop 19 lister. That's going to really stand out because that Prop 19 buyer has a lot of leverage because they don't necessarily have a property tax reassessment that they have to worry about. Or if they do have a property tax reassessment that they have to worry about, this calculation makes it a much more manageable number. So this is a really cool aspect of Proposition 19. And now you guys have this formula that you can utilize in your day-to-day operations as realtors. Manny, is there any questions within the group as we get into the caveat, the negative aspect of Prop 19 for inherited investment properties?
Honestly, just one basic question, just to clarify the 3 times use of Prop 19. Just if you can just clarify that, the 3 times stands for what?
Yeah, so once they reach the age of 55, they have 3 times that they're able to utilize this. So let's say time and time again, they're buying a property that costs less than time and time again. Well, there would literally be no reassessment through that phase, okay? But if they ever get into a situation where they're selling a property and buying a property that costs more than, then they would have to do this calculation. So let's say my house right now, it's worth $1 million, okay? And I want to move to, let's say, a lower cost of living county, let's say the Central California. So my current property cost $1 million, and I'm going to move into a house in Bakersfield for $600,000. Okay, so that property costs less than, so I would carry forward my basis. And then when I sell my property, I don't like Bakersfield. I don't like Bakersfield. I want to move to San Diego. Okay, so the question is how much is that San Diego property going to cost in relation to the Bakersfield property? If it costs more than, I would have to use this calculation. But if that San Diego property costs less than, then I would carry forward the basis. So they get to do that 3 times during their lifetime, essentially allowing them to move 3 times from 55 till eventually they leave us from this planet. So that's essentially how this three times works. Where Proposition 60, you're only able to use it 1 time. It's giving people a little bit more flexibility, and if things change and they need to move within the state. The big thing to take into account is this has no relation if they're moving out of state. It has to be a move within the state of California. Great question. Yeah, if there's not too many other questions, then let's go into the next part, this next slide, where we're talking about investment properties. And this is essentially some information that people need to be aware of, especially if you're dealing with a client that has inherited a property and they're thinking about selling it. This is very likely going to come into their consideration. So things get very complicated with inherited properties, okay? So let's just go straight to the example. Let's say mom and dad owned a triplex in Riverside County and they purchased it for $250,000 in 1995. And the current property tax assessment basis value is $325,000, okay? And the current fair market value of this triplex is $1 million, okay? So mom and dad, their property tax assessment is on the $325,000, and assume a 1% property tax rate. The property taxes is $3,250 per year, okay? Let's say mom and dad passed away and I am now inheriting this property, okay? And I want to keep it because there's good tenants in the property, it cash flows positively every month, and it's all paid off. So basically all the income I get outside of repairs, maintenance, and property taxes is positive cash flow, okay? So in this scenario, what's going to happen is, you're inheriting this property and you're going to want to continue to use it as an investment property. You're going to be reassessed on the fair market value of the property on the date of the inheritance. So if it's worth $1 million, you're going to be reassessed. Your property taxes are going to be reassessed at that $1 million. You will not be able to inherit the $325,000 property tax basis that your parents enjoyed. Okay, you don't get to inherit that. This is completely different than the step up in basis, which affects the capital gains when the property sells. This is strictly for property taxes, okay? So in this situation, you're going to go from $3,250 per year to $10,000 per year, which is a $6,750 a year increase. And with all increased expenses, taxes, etc., the person that pays for that is not the business owner, landlord, entrepreneur, it's the customers. And in this situation, it's the tenants. So there's going to have to be very likely some rent increases that need to be communicated. So that way you can still maintain a degree of profitability. So this is going to further hinder this affordable rent problem that exists in Southern California. So, what I can see happening here is, let's say, you have a client that has inherited, a triplex, and let's say, there's the property hasn't been maintained very well. So they're adding up the costs to see if they should invest in it or not. I feel like a lot of times, especially if the property has appreciated significantly, I feel like the big stinger is going to be the fact that they're going to be reassessed on the property taxes fair market value of the property. Okay. And that might be enough for someone to say, hey, you know what? We're just going to want to sell this. So in that case, you're going to very likely have a very motivated buyer. Okay. So the kind of loophole that exists here is with single family residences. Okay. So this is only if the inherited property is being used as an investment property, meaning that the property is making money. Okay. So a single family residence, if I move into the property and use it as my primary residence, I establish my primary residence in this property, then there would be no reassessment. Okay. So what I kind of see happening, that they're going to have to close this loophole, or something needs to happen. What's to stop me from moving in to the property for, and establishing it as my primary residence, and then down the line, convert it to a rental? There's no real language that says anything that it would be reassessed in that situation. So that's kind of like a loophole. What I see happening with this is that because this is going to be a big moneymaker for the counties, and this is going to need to be enforced, I think they're going to really bulk up their property tax assessment staff. I think there's going to be more of them out there. They're very likely going to create a system that once a property is inherited, they'll be notified, and then they'll probably inquire as to how the property is going to be utilized. Very easy for commercial properties, because commercial properties by definition are used for investment purposes to make money. It's really hard to prove that the 7-Eleven I inherited from mom and dad, I'm going to live in there as my primary residence. That's going to be a very difficult one to do. So there's going to be no gray area for commercial property. But the single family residence inheritances, I think there's a little bit of gray area there. It's also very hard to prove that if I inherited a triplex, a quadplex, that I'm using all 3 units as my primary residence. So this is kind of the caveat here with Proposition 19, this whole reassessment if the property is inherited and continue to be used as an investment property. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. It's Proposition 19 in a nutshell. If the replacement property costs less than the original property, they carry forward the property tax basis, no reassessment. If the property that they're going to replace their existing home that they live in, if it costs more than, a calculation needs to be performed. And then if you're working with the client that is inheriting a property, you'll really stick out, because you'll want to inform them, let's calculate if this house is profitable for you guys. But are you guys aware that you're going to have, if you guys continue to use this as an investment property, we're going to have a reassessment that's going to need to be done. So I see that, with inherited properties, there just being more motivation to sell than upkeep if it's especially a distressed property. So yeah, if there's any other questions, more than happy, but that's pretty much Prop 19 in 5 pages.
No, that's you know what, you can make it more simpler and smoother. Sometimes you go online and try to get information, pros and cons, what have you, and they make it too complicated. So I think it was a very smooth breakdown of everything. Thank you for that. I don't see any other questions. I do think that with the permission, can I share that document with the viewers?
Yeah. And then if you look at that document, I have, there's Aaron and Justin. So Aaron and Justin's email is on that first page. If they want to email us in, we have that and we can send that to them as well. But yeah, definitely share that with whoever. That's great information.
Got your Instagram too over there. Yeah, that's very cool. I'm definitely going to share that so people can read more thoroughly and thank you. I think the one of the reasons to have Louie, our CPA, is to add that additional value and benefit to you guys as business owners, to get advice from the proper people, personal professionals, but also to have that kind of a topic for conversation. So when you go out and talk to your people, you know what you're talking about, and you heard it from a CPA in this specific case. It didn't have to read or guess or whatever. So it carry once again different weight. And I'm excited about next year because we right now working and we're going to finalize this week the quarter one of 2021, and we're going to have 2 sessions with Louie that involves first is going to be how to structure your business properly in real estate, which I think it's going to be very powerful. We did before LLC, S corp, etc. And then we're going to have another session about kind of like best tips and advice or whatever Louis is going to want to throw at us.
Yeah, I could probably go over a lot of the tax changes that are going to come into play as well with Biden taking over. So that way people are very aware how that's going to potentially impact their bank accounts.
Yeah, that's important too. All right. Anything else you want to share, Louis, before we're going to let you go? We're
following this, this new stimulus, guys. So as soon as we get concrete information, Manny, we're going to be reaching out to everybody, all the market centers that we have relationships with. So that way people have good information, because like with the last PPP, the people who got the money the quickest were the first to apply. The people who had to wait months were the people who didn't apply in that first, the first couple of weeks. So we want to get everyone ready. So that way, as soon as banks start opening up their portals to apply, you're in that queue. Okay. The sooner you can get in that queue, the sooner that money will touch your bank account. And, that's going to, in this environment, that's going to really help people.
So I think it's going to be worth also to maybe prepare like prepare you guys for, heads up for a session we're gonna have with Louis, like we did last time, with kind of like how to apply, how to prepare yourself, what to do, the best steps, resources, etc. And then I just shared the link with you guys for the 5 pages slides. It works fine on my end. So if you're watching us on Facebook in our group, that's the one that Louis just went over. Yeah, and that's all we have, I think. Louis, anything else to add?
That's it, Manny. It's short and sweet. Like you said, I took all that complicated articles on there and put it in that 5 easy to understand and execute pages, because I mean, even me myself, when I read some of these articles, I get confused and I know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. All right, Louie Vazquez.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy holidays. And we'll definitely be in touch with everyone over the next couple of weeks with the end of the year and also the next stimulus package. Thanks for having us, Manny.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.